What's up, everyone? Chris Gio here, coming to you from Beyond the Veil. Just had a quick update. We did a 3.5 hour broadcast the other day. I've got that linked up down in the description. But not less than 24 hours after we did our broadcast, this article came out. Lawsuit accuses Jay-Z of inappropriate behavior, forceful behavior. I don't want to say that keyword, of a young person who was 13 years of age. And this happened back in 2000, and supposedly this happened with Sean Diddy Combs. So the article goes on to say Jay-Z, the rapper whose real name is Sean Carter, was accused of drugging and that other word, a 13-year-old girl, allegedly along with Sean Diddy Combs in 2000, according to a civil suit filed in federal court on Sunday. The anonymous plaintiff, identified as Jane Doe, said the assault took place at an MTV Video Music Award after party. Now, it's interesting because on the last stream, we tied this into Jay-Z through Marina Abramovic. If you don't know who Marina Abramovic is, please check out that stream in the description. We covered several different things, from UFOs in New Jersey to the Diddy thing to World War III, which we'll touch upon here briefly as well, but I do want to keep this stream short. Marina Abramovic is an artist that was first exposed in, she wasn't first exposed back then, but that's when her art really came to the surface back in 2016. When WikiLeaks did a dump of the Clinton campaign emails, or the DNC emails, and they found that John Podesta, who was Hillary Clinton's spokesperson for her campaign, was invited along with Tony Podesta to do something called spirit cooking. Shortly after that, Marina Abramovic teamed up with Jay-Z, and they did a 6-hour presentation, a 6-hour performance of his song Picasso Baby, which again, we mentioned in much greater detail on that previous stream. There is a lot of, I don't want to say satanic, but let's just use that just for the lack of a better term, a lot of satanistic and satanic rituals that are performed, blood drinking rituals and
Dark
rituals that
energy.
involve dark energy. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That involve taking this essence from children. So that's something that went along with the pizza related stuff back in 2016, tied into the Jay-Z thing. And then Jay-Z hasn't been directly implicated just yet. But like I said, less than 24 hours later, Jay-Z was implicated after we did our broadcast. I don't think the two are connected, but it's just very coincidental. It always makes me happy when we're on top of things. Spirit cooking is the ritual that they were involved in, at least in the emails. And Jay-Z has been noted to say over and over again, hey, the spiritual stuff works. And it's not spiritual stuff in the mainstream sense. It's spiritual stuff in the sense that they do these, like it says here, satanic rituals involving kidnapping little ones and Marina Abramovic. So it's worth noting, too, that Snopes has considered this false. And the only reason why I'm going over that is because that's what YouTube's algorithm likes to hear. But it's interesting how they cover this, because here they say, yes, the email existed. Yes, Tony Podesta was invited to this dinner. And Tony Podesta, being an art collector who's the brother of John Podesta, who has a piece in his foyer called The Arch of Hysteria, which was, you can't make this stuff up, modeled after one of the Polaroids that Jeffrey Dahmer took of one of his victims. I will repeat that again. Modeled after the Polaroids of one of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims. I can't even say that twice. Jeffrey Dahmer's victims after he was decapitated. So it's some really, really horrific stuff. But dear Tony, I'm looking so forward to the spirit cooking dinner in my place. Do you think I'm able to, do you think you'll be able to let me know if your brother's going to be joining us? Love, Marina. Are you in New York City Thursday, July 9th? That was a letter from Tony over to John, or vice versa. From Tony over to John. So they admit, yes, no, this all happened. All these emails are there. It's just, the spirit cooking dinner, it has nothing to do with any kind of satanic rituals. That's why it's false. It's not that it didn't happen. It's that, it doesn't have anything to do with the satanic rituals. Even though Marina Abramovic herself has said, when these, and this is also in the WikiLeaks emails, when the rituals are done in public, they are an art piece. When they're done in private, they are a ritual.
That was I actually have a copy of that article, and it's called When Art and Politics Meet, and it was done in the Age magazine on May 6, 2004. And I actually have that exact article where they're showing the Arch of Hysteria and all of that. It's called When Art and Politics Meet. So,
Please send it to my email real quick.
okay.
Yeah, because I'd like to put that on the screen here for people. Um, so yeah, the unraveling has begun,
Mm-hmm.
and it's nice to see this happening. We also talked about Jonathan Odie, I believe, if I have that name correct. He was the guy that went and shot up the Trump Tower back in 2018, I want to say. And they did an interview with him afterwards, a Secret Service where, and he says, "Look, I'm not against Trump. I'm trying to get people's attention. I was a sex slave for Sean Combs for Diddy, and he named Cassie. He named all kinds of stuff there. He said they're trying to assassinate Trump. He said that they're all part of this trafficking ring. That it's all run by the Clintons, and that Trump's biggest mistake is to let Clinton go and not lock her up as he promised, and that his life was in danger, and that's why he did what he did in order to try to bring awareness to all of this. And his court case is still pending, and I suspect that he's been naming names, but there's a lot of people in the chat room saying, like, for example, Drake is done. Yes, a lot of these people have been implicated. You've got Drake, you've got, of course, Ashton Kutcher,
Oh,
who
that was a big one.
that was one of the creepier ones that I mentioned because he seems like a nice guy. Like on the surface, he's got,
And with
a nice smile, all of that, and he chose to stop acting in order to go do this saving the children thing. And
Thorne, yeah.
yeah, and then it turns out that no, he's actually one of the wolves guarding the hen house. But we see this over and over again. We talked about Laura Silsby in that previous show. Again, please check that out. That's in the description. Laura Silsby, who was a convicted trafficker. She was convicted in Haiti, and then she was brought over here by the Clinton administration, or not the Clinton administration. She was brought over by the Obama administration, but Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State, and Uba Aberdeen was the one that directly brought her over here after her conviction in Haiti and gave her the Amber Alert system.
Mm-hmm.
Let me repeat that. Gave her the Amber Alert system. So we have two cases now, two cases where people implicated in trafficking, one person who's been convicted, are the heads of these organizations that are there to quote unquote save children. This is the way the game has been played. This is disgusting. This has been going on for decades. We've been calling it out since 2016, but it was shut down because, like I said, that Comet Ping Pong misinformation that was, I called it a rabbit trail the other day. The better term for it would be a red herring, because it's somewhere that leads to somewhere that it doesn't add up to anything, and it all gets debunked. The whole thing gets debunked like that. And I speculate that there's some information about the Diddy situation now that is the same thing too. Be careful with the information that's out there, because I'm noticing, and I'm not going to call it out directly because I still don't know 100%, but I feel that there is a lot of misinformation out there, because once you get to that conclusion and you realize that conclusion is false, then they use that in order to debunk the entire idea. And it's an old tactic that they do. Did you send that to my email?
I did just
Okay.
now. And what's interesting is, I guess all the backlash prompted them to remove. See, because I sent you the original pictures, and it didn't get to the part where there's the Arch of Hysteria, because I have that somewhere else. I mean, it's on a very old hard drive, but I did catch pictures of everything. But it looks like they removed all the pictures from that article, including just the one of him and his wife at the beginning of the article. But I sent you another link to another article. That one originally had the Arch of Hysteria on the third page of that article.
When Art Meets Politics,
Yeah.
May 6th, 2004.
Uh-huh.
They were so brazen that May 6th, 2004, they were putting this kind of stuff out there.
Yep.
And they were flaunting it, and they were gloating about it. And they were like, look at this art here.
But that first link I sent you has it in their foyer. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to keep this stream short.
Yeah.
But here's what we'll do. I'm going to take a quick break because we're going to cut the stream right now. We're not going to cut the stream live, but we're going to cut it on YouTube. And we're going to put the rest of this over on Patreon, patreon.com/BTV Tribe. But I wanted to get that piece of information out there first and foremost about Jay-Z, because it's interesting. The other development that we've had real quick that I wanted to go over is within 24 hours again of that show, going to the UFO stuff, we had actually the three topics of that show, which was the P. Diddy situation, which is the pizza situation, World War III, and the UFOs over New Jersey. They all had massive developments. So that's the point of this broadcast here. The development that we had in regards to the UFOs over New Jersey. Number one, I saw an article yesterday, and I cannot find it this morning, but last night I saw an article that these same drones are appearing over California. I can't find it though. So I don't know. I'm just going to leave that as is right now. But I'm starting to suspect that these drones over New Jersey are something more sinister than what they're letting on to. They're actually starting to call them sinister now. There was a Pentagon investigation that happened just the other day about this. And no, I take that back. I don't remember the exact date this happened.
Now it's New York and New Jersey.
New York and New Jersey. Yes. So now they're calling them nefarious, and they're doing congressional hearings over them, which now it kind of makes sense. Why would you tell the public that there's nothing to worry about when you don't know what the hell they are? That's a question that we asked in the last show. Well, it makes sense because you don't want to cause a panic. And when you legitimately don't know what it is, then you don't want to cause a panic. So that's what it is. But they're saying that now their presence is nefarious. And finally, one other major development that happened is Assad's plane in Syria was shot down and the Assyrian government was overthrown. This has a lot to do with World War III and the way everything is gearing up. The people who are taking over Syria is what we once referred to as Al-Qaeda. Let me repeat that. The people taking over Syria are who we refer to as Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda has a very interesting history. Number one, Al-Qaeda, it means the database. That's what it means. It was a CIA database which was started in the 1970s with the Afghan and Russian war. And what we did is we funded Al-Qaeda in order to bring down the Soviet Union way back then. And our freedom fighter, our big hero, was a man named, and you've probably heard this name before, Osama bin Laden. You can't make this stuff up. Osama bin Laden was our big hero in the 80s. There were newspapers with him on the cover saying, look at this freedom fighter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, of course, we had the 9/11 situation, and Osama bin Laden was the boogeyman. Come to find out that the bin Ladens and the Bushes were business partners, and they have been business partners for a long time. So then the Obama administration came in, and the era of going into Syria and trying to destabilize Syria, which this was an agenda that goes all the way back to 2008. So they finally accomplished this agenda from way back in 2008. And it's funny, you got Obama and you've got Biden, and you've got the two who are linked. And a lot of people would say that this was the Biden administration, that Biden hasn't been running anything, and there's really been puppets in the background. As a matter of fact, there's a video of Barack Obama circulating with him with P. Diddy, but that's a side note. Him with P. Diddy is a side note on this show. But there's a video of Barack Obama saying, it'd be interesting to have somebody run for me, and I can just call the shots from the background since I can't run for a third term. So that's that video's out there. So it's the exact same agenda. My point to all of this, though, is that Al-Qaeda then became the enemy. Then they became the friends again, because we started funding Al-Qaeda under the Free Syrian Army back in 2012, 2010, whenever that whole conflict first started to ramp up. And people were calling out and saying, hey, the Free Syrian Army, this is Al-Qaeda. These are the people who we have been fighting. These are the people who supposedly attacked us. And Obama was funding them. And then what happened after that? They turned into the Islamic State. And then with the Islamic State situation, just for those of you that weren't around or weren't tapped into this kind of information, thank you for the super chat, Janet. Love you very much.
Thank you so much, Janet.
So for those of you who weren't tapped into this back then, we had all the beheading videos. And the beheading videos were so fake. They were so fake that even the mainstream media had to come out and start saying, well, I think this one is fake, but the other ones were most definitely real. There was a video of these guys who were in front of a green screen, and number one, they had the heights of these guys wrong. They had the guys, the beheaders, like supposedly like 8 feet tall, and the other guys were like 5 feet tall, and they were walking across a beach, and then you see a scene of the beach, the water turning blood red. It was ridiculous. It was one of the most ridiculous things in the world.
Silly.
And the thing that gave it away the most is the fact that you don't pan on a green screen. When you're using a green screen, you don't pan and then put the green screen behind it. You pan post-production, and they didn't do that. And so you can see as he's panning, the background is staying the same, but it's panning up on the guy, and it was the fakest thing you've seen in the world. And then after that, what happened is a cell phone video came out showing the first beheading video being filmed on a set. And it was somebody on the set who was way back in the back, and he was filming the whole thing. And at that point, everything just shut down.
Yeah.
So is it problem, reaction, solution here? Is it all a stage, or is something real happening? I really don't know. But my point of saying all of this is that now we have funded, just like with the Afghanistan situation, where we just pulled out of Afghanistan real quick and pulled out of Iraq and just left all of the military equipment there for them. We have just handed over the Syrian government over to Al Qaeda.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of
Essentially,
Putin's allies.
And whatever, I haven't been able to check this morning, but what happened with Assad's plane is another thing entirely. Like, what on earth is going on there, where it takes off from Damascus? It was headed to Russia, apparently, and then right as it's about to exit Syrian airspace, it does a complete U-turn and goes back towards another city in Syria, and then starts losing elevation rapidly, and then goes off the radar. That's been said to be misinformation, but at the same time, when it was happening live, it seemed pretty legit to me. Do you think that they're going to do what they've done in the past with other instances like this and act like somebody's still alive and well, and that they're just running away? Or is this a case where they've actually
I really don't know. I haven't kept up with
a world leader in the middle of what's beginning to be World War III?
I haven't kept up with the Syria situation because, frankly, I really don't care that much.
I don't care that much either, but I care in the.
I know one thing for sure is that it's all
that.
one big stage.
Yeah, it is.
It is one big stage. So I don't know how to answer that question. It could be. They could have faked all this and just taken him off somewhere else.
To some island.
To some island somewhere. Maybe he's with Epstein.
I was just about to say, maybe he's with
I know
Epstein.
one thing for sure is that in 2012, around that time, we were doing a film called, what was it called? The Evolution of False... Oh my God, I don't remember the name of the film. Oh
my God.
Crisis Actors, The Evolutions of False Flag Terror, something like that. I don't remember what it was. But I was trying to prove that crisis actors actually existed. Like, I wasn't trying to prove the conspiracies out there. I wasn't trying to prove that crisis actors were used in any particular place. I was trying to prove that crisis actors existed. And I did an audition with a crisis actor studio in Denver, Colorado at the time. And at that time, I recorded the phone call, and they told me on that phone call, one of the things that we're about to do is the Syria Chronicles.
The Syria
Chronicles. This was right before we went into Syria.
Yeah.
And I put this out on YouTube, and it was there for years. And then YouTube pulled it and called it bullying and harassing, even though I beeped out everybody's phone number. And it literally was like a 30-minute phone call with this crisis actor studio about what to bring to the audition and what kind of projects they're going to be working on in the future.
Yep.
And of course, I left it at that. I didn't actually go to the audition or anything. I was going to put myself out like that. But my point being that yes, I've seen this whole world is a stage, and I've proven it to myself at the very least. I don't care if people believe me. The fact of the matter is that I proved it to myself, and that was my point. So, what's going on in Syria? I don't know.
Okay, so this may shine a little bit more light on that. Syria's Assad may have died in a plane crash while fleeing Damascus, Reuters reports, and then they pulled that. That was Reuters. Reuters. That's not, just like some, magazine. This is Reuters saying Syria's Assad may have died in a plane crash while fleeing Damascus. A day later, they pull that article. Now they're saying that Russia actually saved Assad and that he's with them, and that's according to Ukraine. Consider the
So
source.
you don't know. You don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It just
Reuters
adds more.
has been debunked over and over and over
Yes,
again.
they have.
And again, I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. I'm just telling you my own personal experience from the times that I've been doing this. When they went into Libya, okay, my mother spent a lot of time in Libya. My grandfather was who knows who. I don't know. He traveled all over the place, Egypt, Libya, Greece, all over the place. But my mother spent a lot of her childhood in Libya. And I don't remember hearing all these stories about Gaddafi being a dictator and all this. And so I was like, wait a second, this isn't adding up here. So what they did is there was a prison massacre that took place on a particular day. It was like 1996. I remember that part of the date, but they would get in, they would go protest just like every free country does. They would go protest every single year and do a memorial for this prison massacre. And they had the banners up there showing all the faces of the people who were killed in that prison massacre. And Reuters took that photo and captioned it and said, people are honoring the fallen who have fell in the last 3 days in the uprising against Gaddafi. Now, I don't read Arabic, but I can read dates, I can read numbers, and I know that didn't happen in 1996, just like that banner was. And so we did an article on it, and we showed picture after picture from Reuters, of them taking photos of non-events and captioning them in a different way.
Yep.
So I don't believe anything Reuters says.
No, I don't either. And not only that, but consider the source. If you've got Reuters saying that this happened, and then they have to pull the article because they're not sure about what's going on, but then you've got essentially the people that we've been paying to keep this war going saying no, he's alive and well in Russia. It looks to me like maybe they did assassinate him, but they realized that's overplaying their hand big time, because once you get rid of a world leader, that sets the tone for a whole new level of World War III. Does that make sense? Like they're not ready to push that button yet to say, okay, well, we're going to start taking out leaders. And because that would be a declaration of war just in and of itself, because Russia knows that we created Al Qaeda. I mean, of course, they were our first enemies with Al Qaeda, using Al Qaeda. That was their first enemy, was Russia. And so they would see that as a big, middle finger to Russia, to Iran, to all of the allies in that category. And so, and somebody mentioned something in the chat that I want to point out. Democrats have stopped being mad at Donald Trump a long time ago. He is someone who can't help the way that he acts. It's the Trump supporters that Democrats find so disgusting and shameful. What do you do when you can't really attack the leader? You chip away at their followers. You chip away at the people that, not followers, but you chip away at their support. That's what they've been trying to do. It has nothing to do with the fact they don't like Donald Trump, because they don't. Donald Trump to them represents a complete turning upside down of the machinations that they've put in place over the last 50 to 100 years to keep us under control. And so, but they can't. They've tried attacking the person. They tried twice and almost got him once. And so they've realized, okay, we can't attack the person, so let's attack the support. Let's chip away at the support of this person so that they're not as popular. And that's what they've been doing for the last several months is, okay, well, the people that support you are garbage people. The people that support you are terrible. They're the deplorables.
Yeah,
Does
but
that make sense?
they don't really believe that. You really
Of
think they
course.
believe that?
No, they don't.
Right.
But the people around them who don't know any better do and treat these supporters like garbage. And then, slowly over time, it'll start to wear away at you.
I think there's one thing that everybody can do out there, and just be discerning of who you're around.
That's exactly what I was
take
going to say.
note
Yeah.
of how people treat you.
Mm-hmm.
Find somebody who looks at you like Jill Biden looks at President Trump.
Yep.
Find somebody who looks at you like that and reveres you so much.
Yep. There you go.
All right, we're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
We'll be right back. We'll keep it going. For those of you joining us live, stay tuned. We've got more coming up. For those of you watching on YouTube, the rest of the show is at patreon.com/BTVTribe.
The Fox News decision desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
The MAGA movement.
The outcome is not what we wanted.
The MAGA movement. Winning the popular vote was very nice. The MAGA movement.
But please know it's going to be okay.
The MAGA movement. We made history for a reason tonight. It's time to unite and fight. God spared my life for a reason, and that reason was to save our country.
Put it in reverse.
This is also a massive victory for democracy and for freedom. This will truly be the golden age of America. This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. Analysis of the people that voted for us. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. They came from all corners, union, non-union, African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, Arab American, Muslim American. We had everybody, and it was a historic realignment. The MAGA movement.
The outcome is not what we wanted.
The MAGA movement. Winning the popular vote was very nice. The MAGA movement.
But please know it's going to be okay.
The MAGA movement.
While I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign. Hear me when I say the light of America's promise will always burn bright. When we lose an election, we accept the results. That principle, as much as any other, distinguishes democracy from monarchy or tyranny. And anyone who seeks the public trust must honor it.
Absolutely.
We must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition.
USA! 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 USA!
The MAGA movement.
The outcome is not what we wanted.
The MAGA movement. Winning the popular vote was very nice. The MAGA movement.
But please know it's going to be okay.
The MAGA movement. The MAGA movement.
USA!
The MAGA movement.
USA!
The MAGA movement.
USA!
The MAGA movement.
Now listen, if you have not subscribed to YouTube channel, do it right now.
All right. Mrs. Geo will be back in just a moment. So I wanted to go over real quick a warning that the FBI has put out there. Again, we covered it in the last show, but we didn't cover it as in depth. Apparently what's been going on over the last couple of years is that Chinese hackers have been hacking into cell phones and things like that, and retrieving all kinds of data and hacking into the sources. So what the FBI out there is saying is do not send any kind of text messages on Apple, Android, or anything like that. Hackers could be after your text messages, especially vulnerable text messages between Android and Apple devices. 3 weeks ago, the FBI and Cyber Security and Infrastructure Security Agency revealed that hackers connected with the People's Republic of China had infiltrated the U.S. Telecom infrastructure as part of a broad and significant cyber espionage campaign. Those targeted were a limited number of individuals who are primarily involved in government or political activities. Stolen were customers' call records, data, and certain information that was subject to U.S. law enforcement requests pursuant to court orders. However, the hackers are apparently still at work, and cybersecurity officials this week haven't been able to evict them from the networks of some of the telecom and internet firms. So that means they are actively in the networks right now. And we'll get more into the pizza networks here, which is something a little bit different. But yeah, so be careful out there. Use encrypted stuff is what they're saying. But I don't trust some of the encrypted apps like WhatsApp. I think a lot of these are Chinese spy apps, so I don't use any of those. I use, well, I'm not going to say what I use because that's my security.
Why would you?
Exactly. But yeah, so anyways, long story short, it's so funny. So yeah, be careful. You got to be careful out there.
Oh, and
you don't want your naked pictures out there.
Exactly. And there are people in the chat who are mentioning it's YouTube's censoring my comments, not BTB. Not me. Even my comments get censored. That has been going on a lot just on, regular news sites and stuff like that. If you say one word that can be misconstrued as something, even if you didn't even mean it like that at all, or even if you're just blatantly, like word for word saying what other news articles have pointed out, nope, your comment does not meet our community guidelines. Boom. Okay, please rewrite your comment. It's like, how am I supposed to rewrite a comment whenever it's literally word for word what you guys are already saying? So I'm not allowed to say what you guys are saying?
Hey, I mentioned this before. We had a 4-hour show about Mandela effects pulled because during one of the breaks, we played a clip from Jen Psaki, who was the White House press secretary. And she was talking about the thing that goes in the arm and how it could kill you. Mm-hmm. And they pulled it. They pulled the whole show.
The entire show.
They called it medical misinformation.
For that 30-second.
For that 30-second clip that came from the White House.
That had nothing to do with Mandela effect. I mean, and that's like.
You can't make this up.
It's terrible. It really, I think it's better than it was. Especially since X was bought, Twitter was bought, turned into X. That was the turning point for censorship. That was the watershed moment for that. However, hopefully someone similar can maybe buy YouTube and do the same thing, because that would be awesome. It really would. I understand that, there's certain things you can't say because it's direct threats against people and stuff like that. But when you're talking about just being real and keeping it real, that's another thing entirely. Just, hurting people's feelings. Unfortunately for some, the First Amendment, does protect you from getting in trouble for hurting people's feelings. That I heard, I think it was Ramaswamy who said, or maybe it was Charlie Kirk who said, I am so, so glad that you are able to say the horrible things that you're saying about me right now, because that means the First Amendment's alive and well. I think you have every right in the world to say what you're saying, even if I don't like it. And then Elon Musk once said, it's not the speech that's not offensive that we need to worry about. It's a speech that is offensive that we need to worry about being censored, because once you can't speak, coherently and fluently about what reality is, then we're in, Big Brother 1984, where you know, they're you're not even allowed to say 2 + 2 = 4 anymore. What where do you want to go with that? Because this all plays into this whole problem with everything that we're talking about today with the pizza related stuff. It has to do with World War III. It has to do with, Russia and China and what, is going on. What are the differences between those two countries when it comes to our foreign policy with them? That the two are completely and totally separate in their approach, as well as how we should deal with them. Because it feels like we're trained in our media to hate one and embrace the other. And that's the opposite of how it should be, because China's been stealing our work. They've been stealing our intellectual property. They've been stealing our land, buying up large tracts of land in the United States, putting police stations in our cities, and we're still buddy-buddy with them. But, oh my God, no, Russia. Oh God, that's, the evil Kremlin. That's, the evil dictator. And we should have absolutely nothing to do with them. And we should be celebrating the fact that the ruble's collapsing. It's literally backwards land. And and it doesn't make any sense until you realize, just like with Al Qaeda in Syria, that this is basically our people that have toppled Assad.
They're proxy wars.
They're proxy wars.
That's exactly what it is.
That we're engaging in.
Yeah.
And it's not going to work, though, the same way it did in the 50s when we took over Iran and kicked out Mossadegh. It's not going to work like that anymore, because this is the internet age, and this is the information age, and people know too much now, and they know the little tricks that they try to play to upend foreign countries that they just don't like how it's going, and twist things around to make it look like they're the bad guy and the rebels are the good guy, when they're really not. They're
This is a picture from Afghanistan before we went in there.
Mm-hmm.
This is how their society was.
Mm-hmm.
And we bombed them back to the Stone Age. Iran was very similar. Iran had a democratically elected leader, and I hate that term democratically because democracy has issues, but democratic republic, that's fine. They had a democratically elected leader, Mossadegh, and we went in there, the CIA did, and installed the Shah and turned them into a far Islamic, whatever
far right Islamic
direction that is. I don't want to say far right, but
yeah, I know, but
I guess we can say that for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Islamic dictatorship,
extremists,
and we kept them like that. There's a picture of Saddam Hussein. I will pull it up right now for you, as a matter of fact. And Rumsfeld. Rumsfeld was the Secretary of Defense back in the Bush administration. And he's shaking hands with them, and he's very proud to be there. And why are they shaking hands? They're shaking hands because
they just made a deal
for chemical munitions.
Uh-huh.
And so Dow Chemicals, which was Rumsfeld's, he was on the board of Dow Chemicals, had sold all these weapons of mass destruction and chemical weapons to Saddam Hussein, somebody who we put in. Same with Iran. We radicalized Iran. We radicalized all of these groups, and then we call them the boogeyman later whenever it suits us.
Mm-hmm. And that's not even getting into the 30s and 40s, when we had a lot of companies run by Americans that were in operation in National Socialist Germany, that just happened to be spared during the bombings and stuff like that. IG Farben, look into IBM, IG Farben, they're big companies, some of which are still in operation today, that directly helped them do their nefarious deeds in the camps in Germany. And we still use a lot of the information that they gained through those horrible experiments, like the hypothermic experiment. When I had a hypothermic incident, I actually was looking for information on, what that does to the human body and the human brain. And one of the main sources was from the hypothermic experiments that they did in the camps. And they had a hearing on whether that should be allowed to be included in the medical literature, as it was essentially gained through torture. Is it okay to say that word?
I guess so.
In this case, it was gained through nefarious means.
I mean, we're going to pull all this from YouTube anyway, so it doesn't really matter at this point. So, yeah.
That information was gained by doing horrible things to people against their will, and violated not just the Geneva Conventions, but a bunch of different laws that were in place to help protect people from medical experiments that they don't agree to. And they ended up including it, actually, because the information was valid information, and it did help doctors understand what happens to people when they're in hypothermic situations. But that's just one. I'm talking about hundreds of different experiments that we now kind of look back at and say, okay, well, we know what happens to people when this happens.
Well, I'm kind of hesitant to say this because I don't want to create division or controversy in the chat, just amongst our listeners, but the abortion pill.
I was just about to bring that up. Yeah.
The abortion pill was actually created by Germany, 1938 to 1945. And that was for eugenics.
Mm-hmm. And how, okay, but that raises a very dark
it's
question.
A fact, regardless of what your views are on that, it's a fact.
All right. So I'm going to go into two things here that are very, very dark. And that's number one, if you have the men and women segregated, they weren't allowed to live in family camps. They were segregated. So how were these women getting pregnant?
Wow.
Number one. Number two, we did this ourselves in the United States. Whenever I was reading the book, The River, A Journey to the Source of HIV, and all of that. It's a book by Ed Hooper. There's a story about a place called Clinton Farms. And Clinton Farms was a women's prison that, for some reason, women were coming up pregnant in mass. Like hundreds of women were coming up pregnant suddenly. And they told these women, you can spend more time with your baby if you allow that baby to be used in experiments. And, they asked the leader of the experiments, how are these women getting pregnant in the first place if they're in prison? And his excuse, word for word, was, well, they were sluts, basically. And they were escaping the prison, climbing over the fence, and then going to truck stops and getting pregnant. That was his excuse for these women in mass at Clinton Farms getting pregnant. And
wow.
I mean, that's a dark chapter of our history. But if we ignore this and just, forget about it in the historical record, and we don't, and we aren't aware of these things really did happen, and that's just as bad as the Tuskegee experiments. That's just as bad as the chemical experiments that they did, and radiation experiments that they did, feeding children cornflakes that had, radioactive material in them. That's on par with all of that. And that in my opinion, that the experiments that they did in National Socialist Germany are just they even said, we learned it from you guys. We learned it from your eugenics policies. Because the eugenics policies in America at the turn of the 20th century onto onward up until the 70s in some cases when it came to involuntary sterilization. That continued until like 1977 in some states.
Well, I would venture to say that it's still continuing now.
And it's still continuing now.
With the whole 2020 thing that goes in people's arms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, all of this is related to eugenics and basically weeding out people that they don't like. And as we saw in National Socialist Germany, it started with the T4 program, where it was just the extremely disabled, like mentally disabled, life unworthy of life is what they called them. And they were doing them a favor by euthanizing them. And then that spread to people of certain races. Then it spread, and it also spread to homosexuals, and it spread to, basically anybody that they didn't like as an institution and wanted to get rid of. And that was before the camps even started. This was 10 years before the camps, or almost 10 years, about 8 years before the camps even were built. They were already doing this in the group homes and insane asylums that they had these people in. And so, and when they went to the Nuremberg trials, they said, we learned all this from the Americans. We learned this from you guys. Why are you prosecuting us for something that you've been doing for 50 years?
There was a big National Socialist Party in the early 1900s.
There absolutely was.
And Prescott Bush was part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Prescott Bush was selling oil to both sides.
Uh-huh.
And they were
and
funding
manufacturing weapons,
both sides of the
and that's why
the whole war.
And that's why
and we're seeing it repeating now with World War III. That's the point that we're getting at, is that
thing happening.
The same players are causing global chaos, death, and destruction, and it's all for profit.
Yep,
it's for profit. It's for control. It's for depopulation.
Well, and it's also for creating a new world order, as they call it, where they're the ones that are they're the deciders on everything. I mean, I was watching AI, artificial intelligence, the other day, and they were talking about licenses to have children, and it's literally, it should be the opposite. People should be having more children, not less. Even Elon Musk has addressed the depopulation issue and said, we're in a bad situation right now, because if we're developing AI to the point where it can self-replicate and all that, we're definitely going to be overtaken in the next 50 to 100 years, because maybe even 25 years, because we aren't having children. And we're not being given any incentives to have children. In Europe, they're giving people incentives to have children like crazy. And in some Asian countries as well, they're giving people financial incentives and other kinds of incentives, like, hey, we'll give you free childcare, we'll do this, we'll do that. Here in America, it's literally the opposite, where, they're told a fetus is a parasite, that it needs to be gotten rid of. It's going to ruin your entire future. You won't be able to play video games and sit on your ass anymore, and appealing to people's selfishness and wanting to it's just me. But by and large, our population is imploding, and we're going to become what, I watched another movie, Interstellar, and they said, we're not the spacefaring generation, we're the caretaker generation. And it's the generation right after us that, do we want them to be a caretaker generation, or do we want them to be spacefaring, highly advanced, very smart, not willing or wanting to go to war with everybody else, isolationist, type of civilization. And I say isolationist in the same term that Thomas Jefferson used it, entangling alliances with none, but having free trade and with everybody. I do not believe in a one world government at all. What I believe in is a one world with everybody coming to the table with their own, who have control over their own provinces, their own states, their own countries, coming together and actually being peaceful with one another on like globally. Like there's no reason to fight anymore. So we're all working together now. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's an agenda that's been played out for a long time. I like to go a little bit beyond the veil.
Yeah, let's go
and
beyond the veil.
deeper than that. For those of you just joining us, yes, Jay-Z was just accused in a lawsuit of engaging in forceful sexual acts. I guess we can put it like that, because essays.
He wrote a lot of essays.
Essay. I don't like that term essay, but okay. Against a 13-year-old girl with Diddy. And supposedly there was another female there too. And she could be implicated in the whole thing. And I'm pretty sure I know who that female is, but we'll see what happens. I can tell you this. It looks like everybody who was on the Harris campaign has been implicated in all of this. And it makes sense because, as we said in the last show, why would you hate Trump so badly? Like, I mean, it's one thing to not like his politics. It's not another thing to not like him either. But have this genuine hatred, this hatred that comes almost from fear. Like, if this guy gets elected, we are all going to go to jail kind of fear. To me, it all makes sense. But yeah, Jay-Z and P. Diddy are like two peas in a pod, cut from the same cloth. They're probably on a lot of the tapes all together. And that's the thing about these blackmail campaigns, is that, when you're doing the blackmail campaigns, it's one thing like Epstein did. But when you're in the blackmail videos too, that's a completely different level of narcissism and hubris. And I could just pull out a thesaurus and just start going through all the words and they'll all match up just the same. Because, I mean, and the guy's a billionaire. So it goes to show that even billionaires are not immune to all of this.
Right.
Because it's those who deal in trillions of dollars who are pulling the strings behind all of this.
Exactly. Who has the most money wins in this situation.
Yes.
And so somebody pointed out, how are we supposed to, protect our kids when they're, getting essentially brainwashed at school and stuff like that. I said, this is why homeschooling or being at every single school board meeting and making it an imperative of your life, like make it a priority in your life to make sure that who's raising your kids when you're not around and who's teaching them and what are they teaching them, because that's the only answer to that question, because that's the most important thing, is not pawning off responsibility about it to the board, to the school, or to whoever the teacher is and all of that. The problem starts with people not being vigilant enough themselves and not speaking up at these board meetings. That's how it got as bad as it did. And I think a lot of that was people had no idea that stuff like what we're about to show you even exists, much less that there's an agenda to include really, rancid stuff in the textbooks and stuff like that. I found an old video from like 2003. And it was a camcorder video that a kid made. And he's like, and this kid now has got to be in his late 20s. Because it was made in 2003, but he was a junior in high school. And he said, look at what they're teaching me in school. And he held up his textbook and it said America's place in the New World Order. And he's like, why are they teaching us this? When, obviously they want kids to think that the New World Order is a good thing. And they think globalization is a good thing. And that's it, that it was never even thought that they could do anything as heinous as the things that they've done in schools up until the last few years. But please go ahead.
Well, I was watching an interview and somebody had put it like this. I think it was a bodyguard or something like that. And he said, look, you can sell a kilo once. You can sell a little one over and over and over again.
Yep.
And that's why they've chosen to go that route.
And recycle the plastic.
And recycle the plastic.
Yep.
This all came to a head in 2016, as I said before, with the WikiLeaks dump. And when they hacked the DNC emails, people started to see the ties in with the art and how the art is being funneled, or how the art is being used to funnel money and to. I mean, think about this. You've got a commodity here that has no value. Its value is assigned to what it is. So if you want to buy something, and you want to whitewash it. Why can't I think of this term? Launder it. If you want to launder it, then what's the best way to do it? Buy something that has no value and launder the money that way. That's how people like Hunter Biden become artists, and why they become artists. They're artists. Their art sells for millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. Where is all this money going to, and what is it for? I mean, let's say it's not trafficking. Let's say it's something like you want to get in with the vice president, who was his father. So, okay, so I'm going to buy a $10 million piece from your son, and then now I get a 30-minute meeting with the president or vice president or whatever. That's how this worked. But the type of art that these people are into, and the type of art that came out in 2016 with the WikiLeaks emails, is what's disturbing. And I think it's a glimpse into the psyche of these people. Now, we've all heard about red rooms, and nobody's been able to confirm that these things actually exist. There's been a lot of fake red room videos out on YouTube, on the deep web, that people have been putting out on YouTube and like hunting for them and all this. But all the sites seem to be fake. However, there's an artist named Louise Bourgeois.
Louise Bourgeois, yep.
And she has a very interesting array of art. One of them is called the Red Room itself. And she's the one that made the Arch of Hysteria, which I'll get into here in just a moment, again, even though we got into it on the last show. But I'm going to play you a walkthrough of the Red Room. There's two different Red Room displays that she put together, actually, and I can't find that other one. The other one was a black and white walkthrough, but I'll describe it to you here in a moment. But what do you make of this?
Well,
you have a room.
Mm-hmm.
It's a red room.
Mm-hmm.
There's pillows on here that say "I love you" in French.
Mm-hmm. And
there's power tools.
Yeah.
Look,
that's
you've got power tools, saws, things like that on the bed.
That disgusts me.
Torture devices.
Mirrors.
Which
are also used in mind control a lot.
And this is the light version. The other one, which I've been looking for the last 20 minutes and I can't find this video at all. It was a walkthrough of same kind of setup, except it had a sewing machine, old school sewing machine, like out of Cinderella.
Uh-huh.
And next to it was the Arch of Hysteria. And there was a bed there. And the Arch of Hysteria, I've got it here somewhere, is this piece right here.
Yeah, that was from that article that I sent you earlier. Except now they've removed that picture, and they've removed all the pictures and just have the word article.
Well, I mean, these are some gruesome pictures.
Yeah.
This was Tony Podesta's prize piece.
Yep, in his foyer.
And this was also by Louise Bourgeois.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an artist that kept coming up over and over and over again in 2016. Linking all the Diddy stuff, linking the Marina Abramovic stuff, linking all of that together. But you walk through this area. I probably have it on a hard drive somewhere because we included it in the film we did way back. But you walk through this area and you see this on the right, you see a spool like Cinderella on the left, and you see some more torture tools. Why are these people surrounding themselves with this kind of thing? The energy behind it. And again, this was modeled after one of Dahmer's victims. Then one of the Polaroids that they found, and I'm not going to show it on the screen because it's pretty gruesome, but it's the decapitated body in that same pose, and that's how it came the arch of hysteria.
It gets worse.
It gets way worse. It gets way worse. And I'm asking myself now, how deep do we want to go down this? I mean, we've gone pretty deep down it, but how deep do we want to go down on this show?
What, right. How deep can we go?
Give me your thoughts real quick while I find a couple of other things.
I found there's 2 music videos. One of them I included in a video I released on Patreon a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, actually, about how this has been, I mean, they've been blatant about a lot of this. That's their way of, number one, bragging. And number 2, it's the Luciferian, I say Luciferian in quotation marks, but it's the idea that if we tell you what we're doing to you, then, and you accept this, then it's not wrong for us to do this to you. And there's, the first one is, it's called Demons by Doja Cat. And it's a woman who turns into a demonic persona, featuring scenes with red beds, red walls, and devil horns. Another one, though, is actually called Red Room, and it's by Offset. And interestingly enough, like...
Ooh, okay. So we got copyright striked when we were showing the Kanye West video.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna not actually play the video. I'm just gonna go through stills because that seems to
show
be better.
You red rooms over and over.
I mean,
and over again.
This is at the MTV VMA Awards in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
These are blood-covered people.
Mm-hmm. That are, yeah, and it's a celebration of death.
I wouldn't say it's a celebration of death, and the reason I say that is because the Latin culture has Dia de Muerte, something like that. I don't remember, the Day of the Dead. That's a celebration of death. This is a celebration of torture. This is a celebration of
hurting people, of hurting little
vampirism.
Ones. Yeah,
that's the best way to describe it. This is pretty bad.
But if you look up Offset Red Room, that one is literally called Red Room, and the imagery in that one suggests that it's not just the music industry, it's not just the Catholic Church, it's not just it's all of them. And this could be, a way of soft disclosure to a certain extent, but everything it revolves around religion. And even I have the subtitles turned on. It said, Offset is finally speaking out as crazy car accident. You can see that his green Dodge Challenger is totally crunched from the front and back. Offset is lucky to be alive. And this was from 5 years ago. And so Cody culture.
So again, without
I'm not
playing
making
the video
judgments.
itself.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a progression here.
Mm-hmm.
The guy starts out in a religious home,
mm-hmm.
goes into, has
the entertainment industry.
Entertainment industry, yeah. Commits crimes.
And then it gets darker and darker
until
he's in a red room.
Until he's in a red room.
Yeah.
This is nothing compared to what
This is nothing
they're into.
compared to what they're into. But you see all those, I think that represents all the actors and singers of color that were brought into this fold through blackmail and through SA, and then being transformed, like we talked about in the last show, two shows ago, about where there's a certain nerve that they can hit in the rectum that you can literally turn anybody into whatever you want them to be.
That was something that Orlando Brown had said.
Yeah.
And he called it panda eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's interesting because pandas have a black eye. Do you remember in the WikiLeaks emails, you had John Podesta, you even had the Pope in some cases. All these public figures were coming out with black eyes. Mm-hmm. And people were asking themselves, what the hell is up with these black eyes? Who's hitting them to cause the black eyes? Does hitting that vagus nerve like that cause something to happen in the eye that would make it a black eye?
It can break the blood vessel.
That's
around
the panda
the
eye.
Yeah.
So now when we see all of these, let me see if I can find this John Podesta black eye. Because, I mean, we've seen a lot of figures with this, even the Pope.
Mm-hmm.
But they've probably scrubbed all this stuff, so I probably am not going to be able to find it anymore.
Ooh, Jill. I'm assuming you're talking about Jill Biden was a panda for Halloween.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I can't find the.
This all goes back to Crowley and
so
magic.
this was a photo that was found in the WikiLeaks dump. It was of John Podesta. I'll put John Podesta up on the screen, but I can't find anything with black eye right now.
And also the cut on their finger too.
This is right. That's what I was going to say.
Mm-hmm.
He had a cut on his finger, which is part of the spirit cooking ritual,
mm-hmm.
and he had a black eye as well. And it said, "Cut deeply into the left hand" or something like that.
Into your left
hand
finger.
and eat the pain. And the photo was of him holding up his hand like that with a black eye and showing the cut on his finger.
So essentially, and this has been going on for a very long time. And even I hate to reference this show because it is so historically inaccurate in some points. But in the TV show Reign about Mary Queen of Scots, in the final episode of that show, she cuts her hand, and invokes the devil essentially, because her son, who is now king, is weak and kind of pathetic, and she wants to make him stronger. And so she uses the Goetia. No joke. She uses the Goetia and cuts into her left hand, and bleeds into a cup, and then puts some other things in there, and invokes Satan essentially to give him the power that he needs to defeat his enemies and to look like a strong king. And that spirals out of control, and they end up using a witch that they had captured, that they were going to burn at the stake, but using her to, kill someone that was in the way. And long story short, during this ceremony, they were drugged with something that kept hitting them in waves, and they didn't know what was going on. And this is the Chancellor of France and the Queen Mother of France doing this ritual with this witch. And she looks at her hand and she said, "Oh, you've called to him, you've invoked him before," and cuts her hand again. And I think that goes back to this exact same thing. There's a lot of blood equaling energy.
Here's a picture of Pope Francis with a black eye.
How are they getting these? How are they getting this very specific type of black eye? It's not a full black eye a lot of the time. It's right underneath where these nerves are around your eye. And we're not saying that, this happened to him. We're just saying it's really interesting to me how all of these celebrities, I think...
Here's John Kerry.
John Kerry.
Same black eye.
Yeah, on both sides. It looks like, but it does appear that these things are happening to these people as a form of blackmail and as a form of control. And if you get too big, or you get big enough to hurt them, this is what they'll do. They'll invite you to these parties, drug you, do this to you, get it on tape, and then now they've got you forever.
This goes back pretty far.
Yeah, this goes back a long
George W.
way.
Bush with a black eye.
Yeah. This goes back a long, long way.
Interesting.
And this is something that...
And what did Orlando Brown say? When you hit that nerve and hold them down, you can get them to be anything.
Yeah.
You can get them to be an animal. You can get them to chill. You can get them to do whatever you want them to do.
Right. You can, I mean, and that also alludes to the sex kitten programming that Kathy O'Brien and others have talked about when it comes to the Monarch program. They program them to be, at the flip of a switch, they turn into a kitten, a sex kitten, and literally a kitten, like meow and walking like a kitten, and their personality just completely changes 100%, due to these keywords being said, or of a phrase, or being shocked with a shock baton, and that also, the shock baton also alludes to what they use in The Handmaid's Tale to keep the handmaids in line. They'll shock them with cattle prods. And if you do that enough to somebody, it'll break them down and break them down and break them down. And that whole breaking down process can take years, or it can take months, or it can take weeks or days in the case of children. But children are incredibly susceptible to this, where it's the Pavlovian response, where that if you aren't what they're asking you to be, punishment will come. And so, and then it becomes an instinctual thing, where on instinct, they hear a phrase and they immediately, fall in line. And that's why I think a lot of politicians have done things that make no sense for them politically. Like, it's not going to make them look good to accede to this, or to move forward with a certain bill, or move forward with a certain action. It's not doing anything good for them. It makes them look foolish and weak, but they've got this on them, and they're in a program that is propelling them to do these things, and they don't feel like they have a choice. And that's the issue, is that a lot of these celebrities especially don't have a choice. They're in a contract. They're in a death contract even, which is something we wanted to talk about a few days ago, the death contract, and they are very aware of that. And so the decisions that they make about the kinds of songs they put out and the kinds of material they put out may not be coming from them at all, but rather their handlers, who are trained to be able to push the right buttons to get them to think that this is a good idea. This is something that's going to be good for me. But I think that's how it works. I'm sure that's how it works. Actually, it's been documented so many times.
Who was that little girl that was kidnapped in Spain or something like that? I think her name was Madeline or something.
Madeline McCann.
Madeline McCann. Okay.
The whole Madeline McCann case.
Up on the screen.
Yeah.
Let me put this down. Up on the screen, we have Tony Podesta and John Podesta. And this is something that isn't confirmed. But when they did the suspects of who abducted her, when they did what are those sketch arts? Suspects. when they did the sketch arts, the sketch art of the suspects, they drew two people, and I'm having a hard time finding it, but they drew two people that look very similar to Tony Podesta. Here's one of them. I wish I can find both of them at the same time. So much of this has been scrubbed. The suspects who supposedly abducted her were pointed out to look exactly like here. Oh, here's a good one. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, this is all
Nothing,
off the
and
cuff
nothing
right
ever
here.
came of it. You notice that?
This
Nothing
is
ever
two
came.
of the suspects right here.
Mm-hmm. They look familiar.
Do they not look familiar?
They look extremely familiar. They really do. And, you know, someone brought up the poor Jean-Benet Ramsey too. The Jean-Benet
Look, here,
Ramsey
I'm
case.
gonna here's the two of them. And here are the suspects from the Madeline McCann situation. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know in the chat. Because
yeah.
sorry, it's difficult. It's difficult to go down this again because we went so deep into it in 2016, and it's when you really meditate on this and start to tap into realms that are outside of this and just start to come up with what people were terming understanding for all intents and purposes, for lack of a better term, I should say that. It paints a picture that is very difficult to deal with. It makes you want to throw up. So, can you take it away from a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes you very angry if you're a parent. If you're a parent at all, it makes you very angry that this is going on, and this has been going on for a long time. Jean-Benet Ramsey, that was in the 90s, and they still, like, to this day, are trying to figure out who really killed Jean-Benet Ramsey. And there's so many avenues I can go down to explain, you know, what really happened to Jean-Benet Ramsey, but it sure as hell was I'm 99% sure it had to do with the big party that her parents were having the night before.
Well, you know, they supposedly caught the person that did it.
Supposedly.
It was supposedly like a neighbor or something like that happened to see
But
it.
the DNA didn't pan out, did
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Exactly. The DNA didn't pan out. So that means that somebody out there is paying people to take the fall for some of this stuff. And we've seen that throughout history, actually. We saw that with a lot of serial killers and stuff, where they'll tell them, you know, we'll take the death penalty off the table if you confess to this, if you confess to that. And, you know, one example is
look at it on the screen real quick. That's a female that they drew. Who does that look like?
Yeah, who does that look like to you guys? Like Gila Munster.
Ghislaine Maxwell?
That's what I call her, Gila Munster. You know,
I mean,
because Ghislaine. Yep.
It's pretty close.
It is a pretty close, especially how she looked like back then, because she's gotten older since then. And you know,
what are the chances? I mean, maybe it's one big coincidence, but why are all these faces that are coming up in the WikiLeaks emails and all these people who are coming up in Diddy and all that stuff? Why are the sketch artists coming back and saying, hey, this is what these people look like?
Well, and also, you know, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that this kind of thing has been going on since the beginning of the film industry. Not the adult film industry, but the actual film industry. There's another picture.
This is when they went into John Podesta's house, or Tony Podesta's house. They went into his bedroom. And within his bedroom, he had similar, I don't want to say it was this exact piece, but this is the light version from the same artist who was drawing this. And these are kids in a bathroom. And there's other photos that are more graphic than this, other paintings that are more graphic than this.
In a giant bathroom.
I'm not going to put on the screen, but they're on their hands, they're on their knees with their hands behind their backs, and their hands are red. And there's a big drain down at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Because it's not a bathroom. It's something else because there's no toilets.
Right. This is the kind of stuff that, you know, when you go downstairs, we have the Egyptian stuff. We have Isis.
Mm-hmm.
We have Sekhmet. We have Bastet.
We have beauty.
We have Mott. We have a picture that a friend of mine did, and it's a big like DMT
Abstract
type
DMT
of thing. Well, it's not abstract. I mean, it's abstract, but it's got like so many different layers to it. It's, you know, this is the kind of stuff that you walk into our house and this is what you see.
Right.
When you walk into their house and you see stuff like this,
yeah,
what does that say about the consciousness?
In
the bedroom on top of that.
In the bedroom.
I mean, you walk into the foyer and you've got the arch of hysteria. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
That literally is just the tip of the iceberg. And, you know, I'm just like you. I'm like, how deep do we want to go here? Because
there was one where all the kids were in a swimming pool. Amanda's brought this up, and I can't remember whose swimming pool it was either. But there's all these kids in a swimming pool. Well, it didn't look like a swimming pool, but it was like an empty swimming pool, and it had these ropes hanging down on it. And they actually found that it was one of the mansions or one of the castles in Europe somewhere. I want to say England, but I could be wrong. But they actually found a swimming pool that looked exactly like it.
Yep. And that's very disturbing considering that, you know, the whole Elizabeth Bathory story happened in, you know, that was more Eastern Europe, but, you know, Marquis de Sade, like I said earlier, that was in France. And
it's at the Bitmore House.
The Bitmore House.
The Bitmore House. I can't find the piece of art, but, you know, Reddit has some stuff that... This is it right here.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And why are those ropes? Those aren't ropes. Those are... It looks like the kind of ropes you would use to restrain someone.
So in this piece of art that I may be able to find, I may not be able to find. Again, it's difficult to find stuff these days. The kids were all on this wall like this, and it was a painting, obviously, and they were all there with red hands and cuts and bruises all over them. And one was tied up with their hands above their heads like they were dangling.
Yeah.
And they seemed emaciated as well.
Yeah. Undernourished and malnourished. And that leads to the Le Stanley Club and the Marc Dutroux case and all of that, which Marc Dutroux was just the hitman. He did the dirty work of stealing children for this network. And he said that, you know, he's like, you think it's just me doing this in my basement? You know, this isn't just me. There's a whole network here. And he was silenced and couldn't say anymore. And because the people, that one's gross.
So tell me what the hell's going on with this. There's a series of these.
Demonic hybrids. You know, and we already know that the Chinese and the U.S. Scientists, even back about 10 or 15 years ago, were...
Patricia Piscini, I can't see that from here.
They have been creating monsters, essentially, using genetics, and they've created chimeras, human-animal chimeras. 10, 15 years ago, we knew this was happening, 10, 15 years ago. Goddess only knows how far they've come with that kind of activity, and what kind of spirits are they putting into these beings? Are these goetic beings? Because I remember when we were in the Great Pyramid.
Look at what this is called: art, play, children learning.
Ew. Is that what you want your kids learning and playing with? That it's monstrous what they've done.
The welcome guest is what this is called.
Ugh.
The welcomed guest.
And they're teaching children to be comfortable around these things. They a lot of them remind me of the beings that we saw trying to get into the circle that we created. They couldn't get in, but we created a circle around ourselves in the Great Pyramid to do the ritual in the Great Pyramid, and we saw these beings. Do you want to expand upon that?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. But
I don't want to mix the two frequencies.
yeah, me either. But this genetic engineering thing has been going on since they created Dolly, a clone of Dolly the sheep. From that point onward, they were experimenting with human animal hybrids, hardcore. And which is,
I mean, if something like this was in my house, it would creep me out.
oh, I would be terrified of it.
If it was in my house for just a few minutes, I wouldn't go and pay millions of dollars for something like this to put it in my house
Oh, hell no.
and keep it there.
That's cruel. Whatever that being is, and what's interesting is most of these depictions don't look like that being is happy, like that dog one. They don't look happy, and they don't look like they're happy with what they are. And if they've been creating human animal hybrids, it would stand to reason that what if you went through the reincarnation process and then you come back as a half dog, half human? I mean, that would be a miserable existence. It really would. And it's an offense against life itself, and the idea of being human, and it's dehumanizing that's the face of dehumanization right there, is when you're no longer human and now we're turning you into an animal. And that goes back to the whole panda eyes situation. You're not human anymore. You're this or you're that. And that completely breaks down the structure of your identity as a human, your identity as a higher thinking being that has free will and is capable of making your own decisions. I mean, that destroys that inside of a person. And there's evidence to suggest, and I'm not saying that this was exactly the case, but if you look at the Heather O'Rourke from Poltergeist situation, that she passed away at the age 12 in 1988. So this is going back to 1988, the same time that some former child actors are saying they were messed with, and these terrible things were done to them as child actors in order to get a part, or in order to please the people that their parents gave them legal custody over for days or weeks at a time to do movies and such. Her death was a result of septic shock.
Oh, look at this. This scene represents the aftermath of a cannibalistic feast, a fantasy of revenge against an overbearing father murdered and eaten by his wife and children.
That reminds me of Freud. There's a TV show, Freud, where
this is not conspiracy.
Freud, there's these rituals going on where they're worshiping this thing called a Taltosh, and a Taltosh in Eastern European mythology is a child born with a veil over a caul, and that basically means they're still inside of the gestational sac whenever they're born. And if a child was born with a caul, it meant that they had a Taltosh inside of them, and that Taltosh, it was a god to be worshipped, basically. because they had control. They could control people just by talking to them. They could control how they think. They can control how they act. And in this,
There's that tool again.
yep,
Same thing from the Red Room.
exactly. And in this ritual, they would have sex with, they would cover these men with blood, and it was always men. And the Tautosh was a female, inside of a female anyway. And they would awaken the Tautosh by making her relive the trauma that initiates it. It's like a code. It's like a computer code where you have to initiate a process. So they initiate the process of her turning into a Tautosh.
Look,
and then
I haven't heard of this. Louise Bourgeois, Freud's daughter.
Ooh. Okay, that opens up a whole new can of worms. Because Freud's nephew was Bernays, Edward Bernays. His sister married. He actually married Bernays's.
When I do not attack, I do not feel myself alive. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep interrupting.
No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
When I don't attack, I do not feel myself alive.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. So the story of Freud is that him and the Bernays family were very close, and he actually married Bernays' sister while Bernays married Freud's sister. And so his nephew was Edward Bernays, who was the father of modern advertising in the United States. He's the one that made it cool for women to smoke when that was actually looked down upon at the time. And so in this TV show, what they do is they invoke the Tautosh, cover the men that are involved in this ritual, and these are men like of high status, high military, the sons of nobles, people that actually had power or were going to have power at some point in their life. And, similar to what we see with the white parties. But anyway, they're the sons of powerful men, and they would douse them in animal blood, and they would invoke the Tautosh, and the Tautosh would have sex with them. And then while they're doing that, they would ask them, what do you most desire? What are your most evil desires? And they would say, I want to kill my parents. I hate my father and I hate my mother and I want to kill them. And they would harness that energy in the ritual. And what happened was some of it didn't take right. And these men would lose control completely and actually kill their parents, or actually, hurt their little sister and kill their or try to kill their little sister. Or like whatever it is that their most evil desires were manifest. And that meant that they were they were triggered early, is how they explained it. And what they were doing was they were building up enough of these men to try to kill the Archduke of Austria, and like the king basically. And they were going to at a certain time during a ballroom dance say a certain phrase, and then all of those men that had been programmed would be prompted to try to kill the emperor, is what it was, to try to kill the emperor. And this was done it's so similar to what we've seen with MK Ultra and stuff like that, that I have to think that MK Ultra was just a continuation of a very, very long process of learning how to control the human mind and how to control a person's actions beyond their control. And it just made it really clear. And then what you just said, if Louise Bourgeois really was Freud's daughter, that would make a hell of a lot of sense. Because the TV
No,
show.
that's what the presentation was called.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So she wasn't really Freud's daughter. Okay, good. But you see this over and over and over again. This anti-life, anti-human, parasitic drain on life, especially young, innocent life. And you see that as a repeating theme throughout history. They didn't put regular people in the Baal. There was the golden image that they talk about in the Bible. It wasn't just a golden statue. That was what they would execute people inside of, and it wasn't people. It was children. They would put children inside it. They would sacrifice their own children to Baal by putting them inside of this giant Baal statue and then putting fire underneath it and cook them alive. That was what the Baal religion was all about. And it's sacrifice, but it's not sacrifice unless it hurts, unless it's something that's dear to you. And and that's where they're getting it wrong, is they're not sacrificing those that are dear to them. They're sacrificing those that are dear to others. And you can't, and that is, as we're seeing now, all of them are having a big downfall because they were just doing it just purely for power, to get in with the right crowd, for completely selfish reasons. And contrast that with what human sacrifice used to be about. We see it even in Abraham, when he was about to sacrifice his son. It has to do with giving up something that you love, that you care deeply for, maybe even the thing you care most deeply about in this world, and sacrificing that to a being who will then give you the power that you want or whatever. That's where I'm going with that. But
that's interesting. I see it a little bit differently. Up on the screen right here, we have one of Marina Abramovic's dinner parties, and they brought out this large cake that was obviously human. According to her, she was saying that this is how everybody takes a piece of you. And it's an interesting concept if you think about it from that regard, because that's what happens when you become famous. Everybody takes a piece of you. But the horrific way in which it was represented, would you want to eat that cake? I definitely would not want to eat that cake. And like she said,
I'd be disgusted
when it's done in public, it's a show. It's a performance. When it's done in private, it's a completely different thing.
It's a ritual.
Now, I see this more along the lines of energy harvesting, in terms of taking the energy of that particular victim, rather than sacrificing it to some kind of entity or deity or something like that. Now, I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying that it seems like each consciousness is a battery, and it has energy. And when these rituals are performed, you're actually taking the energy from that battery and bringing it over to you. So that's why these work
transfer
in this way.
of energy.
And there was an artist who portrayed this.
Oh yeah.
And I don't remember her name, and I don't know how to find it. I don't know if you can find it.
I can find it while you take it away.
But these images are actually pretty horrific. And again, this was more artists that were named in these WikiLeaks dumps. But it was water painting depictions of little ones on a bed, a woman standing in what looked like lingerie. Again, this is all water painting drawings, and several men around while one was on top of her, for example. There was another one that showed the spirit of the young person floating up above while the ritual was taking place. And they say, if I remember correctly, this was, I don't know, it's been almost 10 years, but if I remember correctly, it was a survivor of one of these or something like that that did these water paintings.
Mm-hmm.
And it was showing how the soul hovers over the body during these rituals. And when I really started to understand within myself what these things are, that's exactly how I saw it to happen as well. The soul travels out of the body. When it's out of the body in that point of almost death, not death, but almost death, they can feed on it, put it back in the body, let it regenerate, pull it back out, feed on it again, pull it back in over and over until all of the energy is depleted. But it's almost like amplifying the energy at that point. Instead of just taking it all, you take it, let it recharge, take it again, let it recharge, let it take it again, let it recharge, so on and so forth. Now, it could seem kooky to many people, and that's what they tried to make it look like in 2016. But when you have so many billionaires engaging in this, I mean, the recent thing that just happened that we talked about in the beginning of this, Jay-Z's now implicated with Diddy. It wasn't just Jay-Z by himself in an isolated incident. This was Jay-Z and Diddy together with a girl that was 13 years old. And they were brutal about it. It wasn't like they were like, oh, well, oops, you know, she looked older. No. This was purposeful. This was brutality. This was ritualistic.
Mm-hmm.
There's something to this.
Oh, absolutely.
There's something to this that's been going on since the beginning of time. And it begs the question, what is this matrix? What is this world? What is this planet Earth? Is it just a farm? I was watching the chat earlier and somebody was mentioning how they see us all. Phil Schneider said this. Phil Schneider said that there were 7 or 8 different species and only 2 of which were benevolent, and the other ones see us as food.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Is that what we're seeing here? I mean, you tie it into that show that we did, Alien Interview, which was great. And they talked about how extraterrestrials are possibly coming here in what they call doll bodies. And so when you see an ET here or whatever, it's in a doll body and it's being controlled like Avatar style. Are these things, and I don't call them human, but are these things who are walking around as humans actually something else that is controlling these human bodies, which are essentially doll bodies? If you look at the way they act, the way they behave,
That's a good point.
they're awkward.
Mm-hmm.
They're awkward. And
Like,
in early 2010s,
smiles are just weird.
in early 2010s, people were saying they're clones, they're clones, they're clones, they're clones. They very well could be. But they break down sometimes. Some of them never blink. Some of them blink too much. Some of them freeze and then start back up, almost like you have a car that died for a moment and then starts back up. That would explain a lot. If it's cloning technology or something that we just simply don't understand. Or maybe that's just my own human mind trying to rationalize this the best that I can and trying to understand this the best that I can, because I don't understand how any human being can engage in something like that.
Yeah. No, it's not human. And it's completely removing the human element out of it. I'm still trying to find those.
And demonic possession, maybe that's just a way just to describe these ideas that we've been talking about here lately.
Hopefully I can find those pictures, but here's an interesting poem that was written in the Leeds Intelligencer and Yorkshire General Advertiser, January 27th, 1767. 1767. Because someone mentioned Moloch in the chat. Now, fast forward for a second to the movie. Oh, what was that movie? That really old movie. That's a silent film. Do you know which one I'm talking about? The
Metropolis?
silent Metropolis. Yes, in Metropolis, he sees the workers basically being killed by the giant machines that they're working on, and he sees an image of a demon, basically, with its mouth open as that, and fire inside of its mouth, and he says Moloch, because that's what it looked like to him. So, and this is from 1767. It's called An Enigma by R. Pullman, writing master in Leeds. In the dark mansions of the briny deep, I unmolested long did falsely sleep. But when the waves and bellowing tempests roar, exposed, and I'm thrown upon the neighboring shore. My better part, however, the watery plain sustains, and probably would there remain, if not found out by that tormentor man, who captive brings me to his native craft, and tells me like a slave to who bids most. In days of yore, you'll find if you inquire, children have passed to Moloch through the fire. But I, hard fate, am always offered twice to Mammon's God a burning sacrifice. It continues here. Yet as in penal purgatorial fire, poor souls are purged from every base desire, from films and filth, from feculence and sin. So I by fire grow light of me, pure and clean. Not long I'm suffered to remain at it's hard to read, at rail, or but bound in fetters and by chains at rest, but bound in fetters and by chains oppressed. A spectacle I'm shown, who could believe it? In public view, like felon on a gibbet. Nigh such ingratitude you've seldom shown, for I've been pelted at with slick and stone. Indeed, my master for sorry is to hear it. For I they put the F's as S's in this, so it's weird. For I possess a landlord's jovial spirit, which I employ for jolly mirth and laughter, though often bruised and killed directly after. At York's famed minister I'm exposed to view, in various forms and those of various hue. Different colored people, same thing. But I'm so proud my feet's above his grace, or any countess that frequents the place. Pray make appear kind artifice what I am, and show the world my useful wondrous name.
Wow.
That's from 1767. So no, this has been going on a long, long time.
I want to wrap it up here in a moment because it's making me sick to my stomach.
It is me too.
But as I'm just doing some searches as you're speaking, I came across this old email here from Tamara Lozado. Tamara Lozado is a liaison between Clinton's Senate office and her campaign office, and she's responsible for making sure that the staff is aware of what's going on. She's also part of the Pew Charitable Trust Senior Advisor for Government. The list goes on and on and on. Very, very deeply embedded with the left, with everybody who's on Diddy's list. Let's put it like that. So I'm just going to read you the email. I'm not going to make any claims or allegations about it, but you guys and gals out there, let me know what you think of this. With enormous gratitude to advanced man extraordinaire Haber, I am popping up again to share our excitement about the reprise of our gang's visit to the farm.
The farm.
In Lovettsville. And I thought I'd share a couple of notes with you. We plan to heat up the pool, so swimming is a possibility. Bonnie will be the Uber service to transport Ruby, Emerson, and Maeve Lozado, 11, 9, and almost 7. So you'll have some further entertainment, and they'll be in that pool for sure. And with the forecast showing prospects of some sun and cooler temperatures in the lower 60s, I suggest you bring sweaters of whatever attire will be enable us to use our outside table, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What is the farm in, what was it, Lovettsville? Yeah, Lovettsville.
Wasn't it owned by the same James Alefantis or somebody connected to James Alefantis?
I don't remember. It's been such a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was. But there was one in Canada, Robert Picton's pig farm. And why pig farms? Because
pigs eat everything.
Pigs eat everything. And so
they will eat
all
the remains
evidence
of whatever you throw at them.
Yep. So if you want to get rid of bodies, you take them to Robert Picton's pig farm, or you take them to another pig farm. And Robert William Picton, also known as the pig farmer killer or the butcher, was a Canadian serial killer and pig farmer. Between 1995 and 2001, he's believed to have murdered at least 26 women, many of them prostitutes from Vancouver's downtown east side. He would confess to 49 murders to an undercover RCMP officer disguised as a cellmate, going on to say he wanted to make it an even 50, but he was caught because he got sloppy. There's a lot of hush-hush regarding that pig farm case. I fully believe that some pig farms, I'm not saying all of them, of course, but some of these pig farms are used as, recycling centers to recycle the plastic. After they've been recycled, i.e., they take from those bodies what they need for other people that are willing to pay lots of money for, say, a kidney or a heart or a piece of liver. And then they take those bodies after they've been recycled to the pig farm.
People are saying that this is heavy in the chat.
Of course
this is the tip of the iceberg.
We barely
haven't even
scratched the surface of this. No, this is some really deep. That's
why when they paraded Epstein around, great. But I was thinking to myself, Epstein is nothing compared to what actually is going on.
Yeah. Oh, that is so vanilla compared to everything that actually happens. It's laughable.
With Diddy, it's getting deeper. Now it's getting into the torture.
Now we're getting into
soon it's going to cross into what it's actually about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are seeing a progression of it all being exposed and unraveled. I mean, I can't say it's necessarily a good thing that it's being exposed and the sense of being put out in people's consciousness, but it definitely is a good thing that it's being unraveled and dismantled. Because exposing people to this kind of stuff is, I think, the way that we framed it back then is that this is a virus. It's a mind virus. It's a soul virus, and I feel it now getting into my stomach. And I'm
same
about
here.
to.
Elisa Brittany just said, "I remember how much that documentary y'all were working on took a toll on your health and looks at the time."
Ah, yes, thank you.
It eats away at you.
It eats away at you.
It really does.
And so part of the way this virus spreads is by getting out there into people's consciousness, whether they're fighting it or not, whether they're part of it or not, it still infects. So everybody just remember to cleanse yourself in whatever way that you do. Shield yourself from this kind of stuff.
Put your shield.
Remember, you're the observer.
Yes.
Don't get into it. Stand behind it. Stand outside of it. Stand outside of it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's almost like it's very similar to the idea that Queen Elizabeth I, John Dee, her astrologer, would do, which was anytime you do any kind of even looking at this kind of stuff, draw a circle around yourself. And just like Jesus did in the Last Temptation of Christ, you put a circle around yourself and nothing can enter that circle, because you need to stay outside of wherever this stuff is going on. And, also take it as you're protecting yourself with the divine spark that you have within yourself. You're choosing to protect yourself from being affected by this to the extent that you can't even talk about it. You can't even think about it. That's where they want you, actually. They want you to either be into it or so disgusted by it that you don't even want to talk about how it exists.
Yeah. And moving forward, I do want to keep it lighter than this. And I'm glad Alyssa brought that up. Thank you very much, Alyssa, because I was looking at some of our shows from 10 years ago, and we looked older. We looked more run down.
Yeah, we did.
We looked like we were dealing with some shit. And we were, because we were making that film.
Yeah.
And I was looking at our recent
was
shows and going, wow, we look like we're getting younger.
Yeah, it looks like we're getting younger.
Yeah. So it's nice to know that it's not just in my mind, and that other people are noticing that as well. So
this is something that eats away at you if you focus on it too much, or if you become part of the game too much. Like we're like I said, we're like you said, we're observers. We're here. We're not here to play the game. We're here to help others escape the game. And we're here to show that the game is a game, and that it's basically a giant computer system where certain codes are being misused to hack into the system and try to get wealth, health, wealth. And
well, they're not trying. They are doing it.
Well, yeah. Well, they are successful, or they have been successful. Here's the thing. They have been successful in the past by doing this, but only because the public at large does not know that these things are going on. Now that they do, the magician's trick doesn't work anymore after you know how the trick is done. And it's similar.
That's a good point.
It's similar to that.
That's really well said.
Now that people are starting to realize what's been really going on, and that these stars are doing these things behind closed doors and then smiling to your face and acting like they're the good guy and they're the protector of children.
Oh, that's interesting. Hold on. I don't mean to cut you off, but you said the stars.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to a star when it dies? It turns into a black hole.
Exactly.
Don't let it pull you in.
Yep. Don't
Ooh,
let it pull you in, man.
We've been coming up with some deep shit at the end of each show.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
Okay,
I was
so
on fire yesterday.
I feel like we need to figure out some kind of way to lighten it up and end it on a better note.
Yeah.
So let's go to a classic WTF brawl for a break real quick.
Yeah.
And
then we'll talk about some lighter hearted stuff.
Yeah, this is a throwback to 2020. But yeah, enjoy this, and we'll be right back. We'll get into something lighter just to kind of clear the energies. Don't go anywhere.
You don't hear them talking about COVID. To be specific, COVID-19. That name gets further and further away from China, as opposed to calling it the Chinese virus. Come flu, the Chinese virus. Come flu, the Chinese virus. Don't you understand, you dumb son of a bitch? Calling it come flu, the Chinese virus. Testing is a double-edged sword. They test and they test. People don't know what's going on. We got this, they got this. You do testing, you're gonna find more cases. So I said to my people, slow the testing down. You know what? We got another one over here. Yeah. The young man's 10 years old. He's got the sniffles. That's a case. That's a case. Thank you, China. Send us the plague. Come flu, the Chinese virus. Come flu, the Chinese virus. Don't you understand, you dumb son of a bitch? Calling it come flu, the Chinese virus. Despite the fact that I have done a phenomenal job. He lied. I saved hundreds of thousands of lives. There was only one person that died. I ran for politics once, but I became president. Yeah! You're so lucky I'm president. There's a limit to what we can achieve.
You know, I'm kind of disappointed because that was one of my favorites, and now it seems so dated.
Yeah.
but hopefully we'll have many, many, many more coming up.
Yeah, I hope so.
I am so looking forward to this next 4 years. So much more fuckery going on. The one thing I love about this guy is he calls it, "You're fake news. All right, you're very fake news." He comes up with all the nicknames for everybody, and he just says shit that just shocks everybody. And it's like, oh my God, a politician's actually telling the truth, actually speaking from his heart. What do we do? Did you see that latest interview that they did on Meet the Press? The interviewer was like, "So are you going to shut down the border?" And I'm like, oh my God, have some fucking respect while you're sitting there. And the thing is, she didn't act like that through the whole interview, because they put out the short clip of it. Like it was like a 45-minute version, and then they put the hour-and-a-half version. And the hour-and-a-half, "Oh, Mr. President, it's so nice to have you," etc. And I mean, she's like vicious and just like just claws, like teeth coming out, and like. And she's like, "Will you commit to this?" And he's like, "I'm not going to commit to anything. Biden didn't commit to anything." He's like, Biden pardoned his kid, and he committed to not doing that. So I'm not going to commit to things. Things change. And she's like, wow. It's disgusting. I don't know why he does on shows like that, but he was great on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, and that was great too.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, I kind of went off there for a minute. I think it's me just releasing all the energy.
And thank you, Elisa.
Rabid, yes, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying too. It's like they're like rabid dogs when it comes to him, and it's because he's not part of that club. You know, if he were in the club, they'd be all over him and loving on him and telling us he's the best thing since sliced bread. But he's not.
Well, Joe Biden was.
Exactly.
I think that's hilarious.
Oh my God.
They actually made a fragrance meme out of it. And they're like, the smell that even your enemies will make you fall in love with you.
Yep.
He's got charisma.
So.
And sometimes the charisma, I mean, he just, when he said, when Megyn Kelly, who's like a big fan of his now, she hated him in 2016. She's like, "You've called women dogs and this and that. And instead of denying it or defending it or anything, only Rosie O'Donnell."
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
Boom.
There you go.
Like, how do you come up with that? Like that's like the one and only perfect answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the only answer that you can give that is a winning answer.
Uh-huh. And he seems to just nail him.
Yeah, nails it every time.
So I hope that this is all connected. I hope that because of him, who's not on the screen anymore, but because of this guy, that all this is coming unraveled. And I hope that that's why Diddy was toasting Jay-Z in a video and saying, it's not like it's 2016 anymore. It's 2020 now. It's a whole new era. 2021. He didn't say we have a whole new president. He didn't say we have the deep state. He didn't say any of that. They just said, it's not like it's 2016 anymore. We can get back to business.
Yep, we can get back to business.
Let's see if you get back to business.
Yeah, let's see you get back to business now, from yourself. Yeah, they're scrambling right now to try to maintain power, and it's not going to happen. That's it. I think it's too late. Too many people know what they've been up to. Too many people are aware, and that's reflected in the 2024 election. That was totally reflected in that.
Well, yeah, and there's a few people that are naysayers in the chat, and more power to you. I respect all opinions.
Yeah, of course.
On the last show, we spent 30 minutes talking about what if Trump is part of the agenda. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, that's cool. We can talk about that when we're all lined up in FEMA camps getting force vaxxed.
Yeah, exactly.
We could sit there and we can talk about it all day long and be like, you were right, dude. He was part of the agenda. Yeah. Oh man, I gotta get this forced sterilization now. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. Well,
until then, let's try to be hopeful.
Let's try to be positive and hopeful and optimistic here because there is a lot of reason for optimism because it's not just Trump. It's a whole group of people that I believe want something better for all of us, and they want to get rid of what's made us a country that other countries have laughed at over the last several years. we were a running joke for a while there. And now that they know that Trump's coming back into office, there's a lot of these foreign countries that are scared to death, because they know that, party time's over and networks are going to get shut down, and they're not going to be able to have that free flowing network across the border. They're not going to have a free flowing network from Ukraine. They're not going to have the network of, that involves taking children away from their families and doing things to them that.
Well,
You wouldn't
some
even
of his
believe.
views are a bit too much for me. He wants to deport all illegal immigrants. That's taking it a little bit too far. Like, we've known some really, really, really nice people, hardworking people,
That aren't
people
here
who
legally,
they had children here
Mhm.
and their children actually died in wars
right.
fighting
Now
for our
that
country.
one, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's a little too much right now. Like, let's figure out something. It seems a lot. It also seems like a big undertaking as well. It seems the same as like Jeff Sessions saying, hey, we're going to go and shut down all the cannabis throughout the United States. And then when he got in, he was like, oh,
Big
crap.
talk.
He's like, it's way too big for that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the line that kind of, when he crossed, I was like,
Yeah. And
that's a little too much, because
execution of drug
there's some really
dealers.
good people here. We need to help
know.
those people.
And also the execution of drug dealers line that didn't sit well with me at all, because that for several reasons. One of them being that the control system, of the system of, what's a controlled substance and what's not, is screwed up just on its own. It's backwards, where certain drugs that destroy lives are technically legal, even though they're Schedule 2, and yet psychedelics Schedule 1. That control system is completely
cannabis.
messed up.
Cannabis is a Schedule 1.
Well,
Cannabis. And
Right.
cocaine is a Schedule 2.
yeah. Did you know
Cocaine
that?
has a medical application.
Mm-hmm.
They actually have a freaking prescription thing called like Numbidol or something like
It's
that.
like a nasal spray.
It's a nasal spray that they use for anesthesia.
You're not even using it.
And they're like, oh,
differently.
yes, it has medical applications.
This has
for
medical
sure.
applications.
Cannabis, on the other hand, no, nothing at
Yeah,
all.
nothing at all good comes from cannabis, especially CBD.
Right,
You know?
right. So things are a little bit backwards in that regard.
Yeah.
But we are in a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
This country has been infected so badly. I mean,
So deeply.
the thing is, he was the first president in 32 years that didn't declare a war. That speaks volumes for this country
Yeah.
and the state of this country, and the duration upon which the virus has infected. Even if you just want to look at the surface political virus, I mean, we shouldn't be declaring wars over and over and over and over again. I mean, it was a big relief for me when he got in office, because my whole life I've been bombarded by these people want to kill you. These people want to bomb you. We got to go bomb these people. We got to liberate these people. Oh, these people are liberators. These people are freedom fighters. These people are terrorists. It's all just a big mishmash of bullshit. But it was the first time that it was like, we have mean tweets. Our feelings are hurt. And I was like, oh, that's so great. I'd rather have a whole group of hurt feelings than a whole group of dead people.
Thank you. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then somebody said, have you guys never heard of controlled opposition? Well,
Of course we've heard of
course
control.
we've heard of
That
controlled
was like the
opposition.
second show we did was controlled
yeah,
opposition.
Exactly. We even mentioned in some of the songs,
Yeah, I have a song called COINTELPRO.
COINTELPRO. Yeah. So absolutely.
I wrote it in 2010.
And we weren't automatic Trump supporters. Like we didn't automatically support Trump. It took years, multiple years of him being in office and showing and a pattern of behavior that we saw consistently before we'd even say anything good about Trump. That was, because we're discerning. We practice an enormous amount of discernment.
You want to hear a funny story? I've never shared this because it's just kind of an inner kind of thing. When I did that song COINTELPRO, I did it in Cubase. And in Cubase, you have an export on the MP3 that sets the title, description, name, all that stuff. And the title of the song was called COINTELPRO. I didn't realize this, but for like the next 3 or 4 shows, I was using the same Cubase thing and exporting, and the little title said COINTELPRO in the MP3 tag. And I remember people going, "Oh my God, it's just COINTELPRO. What's going on?"
Yep, people's
And I
minds
just
just
sat
run
back,
wild.
they just boom, and I just sat back and just chuckled the whole time.
Yeah, because
I was like, I literally just released a song called COINTELPRO just a couple days ago.
exactly, and it's not. So we're very aware that this could, and we're leaving it out there that this very well could be a case of controlled opposition. But that just took 12 years to manifest, and that we're all going to be disappointed come January, and oh my God, but then, like you said, we'll go ahead and admit that we were wrong while we're all surrounded by FEMA camp.
That's the way
fences,
I see it. Yeah. So I don't know. I try to be hopeful.
Me
and
too.
anyway, it goes, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. But I haven't seen the same Trump that I did in 2016, who's like calling out constantly stuff. I guess he tried to act more presidential, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah.
What's going on with Alex Jones, man? That is so sad.
Such a sad mess.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
We were on GCN opening up for Alex like way back in like 2012, 2013, something like that. And so we knew Alex a little bit, but not too much, but a little bit. And I remember when he first got banned on YouTube and all that, I was like, hey, this isn't right. And people are like, fuck Alex Jones. And I'm like, it's not right to ban people because they're coming for you next.
Yeah.
And people are like, no, get him off. I guess they thought if they can get rid of that big dog, then there'd be more room for other people. Like, I don't know.
Or if you get rid of the big dog, the little dogs will start to get scared and stop doing what they're doing.
Maybe. But I know one thing for sure is that defamation law, it's supposed to be the person that originated it, not the person who's talking about it later. The person who originated it. So they went in there and just completely I don't know what happened. I don't know the legal details behind it, but I think he missed some court dates or he ignored it or something like that, or they got a default judgment or something like that. And when he went to court, they said, we're not here to figure out if you're guilty. We're here to figure out how much you owe.
Which is the very
And they were trying to sue him for like $3 trillion or something like that, like $3.5 trillion. I heard somebody talking the other day and they were like, this is the GDP of France.
Yeah.
And they were like, it's bullshit. And I was like, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. So they went into InfoWars and they tried to take down InfoWars and sell that as part of the bankruptcy. And he's like, I don't care. I'm Alex Jones. I have nothing to do with InfoWars. They wanted to take his image, his likeness, his name, and prevent him from even using the name Alex Jones, which is his legal name.
Yeah,
and the bidding that went on was like, The Onion came in and they bid something and they did something with the debts. And they were like, okay, apply the debts to this. And they tried to do the auction in a way like that, and they're like, well, it's not the highest bidder, but it's the best bidding.
It's
like that's not how it works. That's not how it works.
That's not the way a legitimate auction works.
He had backers who were going to basically buy InfoWars through the auction and then put Alex in charge of it, and nothing was going to change at that point. And he's suing The Onion now. And he's suing the Sandy Hook family, and he's suing everybody now for the auction. And so it's just a whole world of BS. But the way they came down on him and sued him for, they say at the end of the day, he owes $1.2 billion. It's absurd. It's absurd. And the thing is, they went into a studio and then he was like in another studio and like the next day. Because InfoWars doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Alex Jones is what it's all about.
Right.
And so if Alex moves over to alexjones.com or whatever the case may be, everybody's going to follow.
Exactly.
So I don't know what all this nonsense is all about.
It was all about just trying to, stain his name and take, I think it was to set an example, to just set an example and set a precedent for, hey, if you say things that we don't like, and if it can even be misconstrued to mean that you're causing further victimization of victims, then we can take not just everything you own and not just your means of making income, but we can take you yourself. Like we can take your identity away from you, and we can remove that.
And Musk stepped in.
Yep.
And Musk, they wanted InfoWars Twitter. And Musk was like, no. According to the terms
Good
and
on
conditions,
him.
it belongs to Twitter. Or belongs to X.
I love Elon Musk.
You're not.
I have to,
You're not taking shit.
I love Elon Musk for that. Because it's that kind of thing. And also, just the fact that he's like, so what if I'm going to lose a little bit of money from advertising just because I won't impose censorship on my platform? Go F yourself.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. He's like, they want to blackmail me with money? Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Bob Iger. Is that the head of Disney? I think that's the right name.
Eisner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, just go fuck yourself.
Right.
I thought that was fantastic. I mean,
he was talking to another, and he's like, he was doing an interview, and the interviewer was asking him, well, why post those views? These are people who buy Teslas. And he's like, I'm thinking of the Princess Bride. There's he says, offer me power, offer me fame, offer me money. I don't care.
I don't care.
The interviewer was like, oh my God, he doesn't care? I don't care.
No, I don't care.
It's great.
Yeah, that is classic.
It's great seeing people outside of the fold, outside of the norm. And that's what Trump and Musk bring to the table. They bring a completely different way of doing things.
Yep. And that's what I love about this new generation, is that they don't want to hear you tell them, or show them, beautiful things that are a lie, or say beautiful things that end up not to be true. They want raw. They want realism. They want, say it like it is and play it like it is. Don't try to, play these games behind closed doors to try to manipulate people into doing what you want them to do because your investment bankers, want it.
I'm going to put an image on the screen real
completely
quick.
different now.
I'm going to put an image on the screen. And I want to ask you the question that they asked in the chat room. Do you think Russell Brand is really a Christian now? I don't even think I need to answer that. Y'all could just look at the screen and just let me know what y'all think in the chat.
That goes back to what we were talking about yesterday.
You are best known by the company you keep.
Yep. And that goes right back to what we were talking about yesterday, where if you're expecting to, and that was more about social absolution, not spiritual absolution. That there's a long history of people that do terrible things that, I'm a Christian now, so all that needs to be forgotten.
See, Gotti said that sure is white. I was thinking to myself that too. I just didn't want to say it. I'm glad somebody said it.
Yeah,
everybody seems to be wearing white there.
Yeah, those white parties are weird.
Maybe it was a quinceañera. Who knows? Damn.
That's bad. But I think, and somebody mentioned Trump supports Netanyahu. No, he doesn't support Netanyahu. He does business with Netanyahu. He does business with all of these foreign countries, including Putin, including, Zelensky in Ukraine. Like he's the best president that I can think of is somebody who's willing to be a businessman and not have emotional arguments that are presented to the public as to why we need to invade this person or why we need to stand up for this country's army or why we need to send, what was it, $60 billion to Ukraine. I'd rather,
kiddies are engaging in World War III over here.
Yeah, they really
I don't know
are.
what's
I don't know what
gotten into them.
I think it's.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
I think it's
I'm
the
sorry.
treats I got them.
Yeah, they're.
Yeah.
Apparently, somebody pissed somebody off.
But we're going to have a president that is business first and foremost, and puts the emotional arguments to the side, because that's what we need. no more of the emotional manipulation to get ourselves into wars that we can't sustain economically without hurting ourselves. That's what we need. And I'm great.
The only thing I don't like about Elon is the Neuralink. Yeah. I feel you, man.
I have to agree with that.
I feel you. The only way that I can rationalize it in my mind, and again, maybe I'm just rationalizing, who knows, but somebody's going to create it.
Somebody's going to create, so it might as well be somebody with ethics.
Yeah.
Or that has strong moral ethics, that doesn't have a master plan of completely taking over the world and making everybody into robot slaves. But I was talking to you about this the other day, and I was like, there are different things besides Neuralink, that people are developing to do the same thing that Neuralink does. And I have to say, it would be tempting to not be in this body, but and if it weren't for Eye of Life, I would have so much inflammation every single day that it would be extraordinarily tempting to want to get something like Neuralink or another brain implant that would turn off my pain receptors to a certain extent.
That's a good point. I didn't want to bring it up, but I guess we will bring it up. Back in 2018, Cherie has a condition that causes a lot of pain, and is a birth thing, and it was a lot like NSAIDs.
Yeah.
And finally, the doctors were like, "You can't take any more NSAIDs. Your body can't take it anymore." And we were like, "We've got to find.
How are we going to control the
We've got to
inflammation?
find something."
Yeah.
So we took the ayahuasca vine, which is the healer, and we infused it with CBD, high purity CBD. And at the time, as I said in the last show, at the time it was all about the synergetic effect between THC and CBD and all that. And that was kind of the mainstream things that people were pushing. And then in 2021, the National Institute of Health came out with a study showing that CBD isn't effective.
Yeah.
The high purity CBD, the 99% pure, it has to be 97% pure or up and not infused with THC, would have actually, and this is Dr. John Campbell speaking, his exact words, if people in Wuhan would have taken this, it would have prevented the entire thing. I'm paraphrasing because I don't want to do any
and completely changed history.
And completely changed history. So this is all being like scientifically proven now. But I remember when we first came out with it, people were like, it's never really worked for me. And then, but yours works really, really, really well, and we were like, I don't know, there's something different about this. And come to find out, we were vindicated with the science later.
Yep. Especially when there's a cumulative effect.
Yeah.
And you've been taking it for, more than 5 days. At that 5, 6, maybe 7 day mark, something happens inside of your body that it reduces inflammation and all of that. That's what it did for me. And I'm just speaking from personal experience, as well as looking at the scientific evidence. And the evidence shows it's a cumulative effect that you can just keep going indefinitely, so long as you keep those levels up.
Yeah. So we put it out there, and it's just been amazing testimonials.
Oh yeah.
And we did a buy one get one free, which is you go to the website, you put 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, quantity of 2, and then it'll take half off the cart. So if you put 10, then you'll get 5 for free. If you put 2, you'll get 1 for free. People have been swearing by it for everything from tennis elbow to even more serious things. I mean, we've had some testimonials where this one in particular, he said his grandmother was in hospice and she was like at the end of her life.
Oh, that's the best.
And he started giving it to her, and he came back after a few days, and she was up playing cards with the hospice nurses and everything like that.
A week later, he came back and she was playing cards.
And she was
joking.
lucid again.
Yeah, lucid.
And another one,
around. Yeah.
Grandma was not gardening anymore, and she started taking Eye of Life, and then she came back to life again.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's interesting, the name. I mean, it was named after the Aya vine, obviously, in life, because that's the way it life, but I didn't realize that we would get those kind of testimonials. And of course, the grandma in hospice wound up passing away. It's not like that, but it gave more time. gave more time, which is so
Exactly.
precious.
That's the most important thing. When
Yeah.
you're in a situation like that,
So if you
it's
go,
not just about the time, it's about the quality of that time.
yeah, so if you
is
go
that time
and
spent,
put 246810 whatever in the cart here, and then type in BTV Tribe at checkout, it will, all lowercase, BTV Tribe, like our Patreon, patreon.com/BTV Tribe. It'll do the buy one get one free for you.
Yeah.
And we did that for Cyber Monday, but we kind of extended it for
Yeah,
a
we're
little bit of time
extending it for a
because
few weeks, few days.
people have been benefiting from it so much. And
It's been
I
amazing.
think I need to take some now because I feel all energetically dirty.
I feel, and it's funny because as soon as we started developing and using the Eye of Life, our appearance went from being, gaunt and,
Actually, I didn't make that connection.
uh-huh.
That's true.
That was around the same time that we started developing it.
Yeah.
And it transformed us.
Because we developed it in 2016, but we didn't put it out there until 2018.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so I think maybe our subconscious was like, hey, you need to clean up your, internal system because you've been taking in all this garbage.
And we've been shipping it worldwide too. Australia, places like that. And when we ship it, we put different labels on it that just say Eye of Life Original Blend. So we haven't had any issues.
Yeah.
Knock on
Knock
wood.
on wood.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
continue that. Let's pray that continues. So,
So this has been
a fun show.
this has been very fun.
But at the same time, I'm glad we ended on this note and not the other, because the point is not to make you guys feel dirty or like, everyone making music is like this, or everyone that's on TV is like this, or everyone that's a celebrity is like this. But people need to be aware of this. And, somebody said, I could have gone my whole life without hearing about this. Yes, but then that would have just continued it. The fact that people didn't know what was going on at Boys Town in the 80s meant that it was allowed to continue and go on. It's the disclosure of these kinds of things that eventually brings peace.
I hope. I mean, if you look at
for those victims, especially
if you look at Trump's border policies, if this has to do with shutting down the networks, then I understand wholeheartedly why he's so gung-ho to do that and why there's so much importance, because you have to cut off their supply.
Yes. Yep.
And even though he may not be able to come out and talk about it, because when he did during COVID, CNN pulled away and said, we'll get back to the president when he gets back on topic.
When he gets back on topic.
He's talking about some kind of trafficking operation where he's going and deploying the military to go and stop human trafficking and save children. That's not what we're about here at CNN.
That's not what we're about here at CNN.
And this actually happened. This isn't hyperbole.
That's
this
happened. Word for word is what happened.
Not word for word, but it's not hyperbole.
Word for word that they said when he gets back on topic.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. And in the middle of it, in the middle of COVID, he's like, yeah, we're going to go after some human traffickers right now. I just deployed Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
While I was having a nice chocolate cake.
Yep. Exactly. So
we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens, but I think what's going to happen in the coming days is we're going to see much younger, people that were affected by all this. And so be prepared, mentally prepare yourself, put your shields up, and don't become part of the game, be an observer of it. On either, like part of the game as in the anti that, so much so that you lose sight of why you're here.
Very well said. We are at 2.5 hours, a lot longer than I had planned. Mm-hmm. What did I tell you before we hopped on? I was like, hey, I'm going to jump on and do a quick 5-minute, 10-minute stream.
Yep. Couple minutes.
And you're like, can I join you? And I'm like, yeah, let's keep it under 20 minutes. Here we are.
Not going to happen.
2.5 hours.
We love you guys.
Whatever you're getting here on YouTube is on YouTube. The rest is at patreon.com/BTV Tribe. I'll try to keep some of this online for a little bit. I just, I don't want to get our YouTube channel.
Yeah, I
shut
don't
down.
either. I don't either. So
Yeah.
there's probably going to be the majority of this on patreon.com/B2B Tribe.
So kiss the one you love right now. You never know when the last time is going to be. Thank you for joining us on a Monday morning on top of that.
Yeah, Monday morning.
And we will
It's
see you
early.
even further.
Beyond the Veil.
Love you.
Love you guys.